This process of mind becoming mistaken about itself and going astray has not existed previously as something, nor does it exist later as something, but is present here and now. But although being a presence, it is not experienced as something existing ever since it has made its presence felt. Since the intellectual activity being led astray by inveterate tendencies, while being nothing and yet being there, in its actuality has been pure since its beginningless beginning, it is similar to a dream. In the same way as that which presents itself internally as a dream does not so exist before one falls asleep, nor after one awakens from it, but is there at the time of sleep, and even then is nothing specific in itself. So also know this paradox of a presence without anything present, to have neither foundation nor root. When you make yourself familiar with this dreamlike character of reality during daytime, and now at night are about to be engulfed by sleep, you must lie down on your right side on a comfortable bed in the posture of the Buddha passing into nirvana. The motility in the body becomes hardly noticeable, and the eye movements cease to be erratic. You must fix your mind on the point in the heart where from the white-colored short sound syllable ah, like ah, crystal globe, a pure light shines forth, becoming subtler and subtler by decreasing in size from a finger's breadth to the tip of a hair. And you must not allow the dream-like attention to it to swerve. Thereby, a dream-like, sheer lucency arises. From Kindly Bente Isis, Part 3, Wonderment, Longchenpa, translated by Herbert Gunther. This one's old. It's from the 70s. It's the first translations of the Dzogchen teaching. Hello and good day. This is Darren Littlejohn. You're listening to episode 55 of the 12-Step Buddhist Podcast, Trauma and Recovery, and continuing with Practices of a Bodhisattva, number 13. If someone cuts off your head, even when you have not done the slightest thing wrong, through the power of compassion, to take his misdeeds upon yourself is the practice of a bodhisattva. To take his misdeeds upon yourself seems a little confusing. What that means is karmically, one would say with an understanding of karma from the earlier base teachings, the awareness that what that person is doing is creating their own negative karma. They're making their own suffering. I know this because I'm studying Dharma. I try to practice Dharma, and I can see that that person is hurting themselves when they hurt others, even if it's me. So the example that's always referred to is the monks in China who were taken by Chinese, in Tibet, who were taken by Chinese soldiers and tortured and such. And the story goes that the hardest thing for the monks was that they almost lost their compassion, even as they're being tortured. So this is the example. Now, how can we bring this back down to earth for us? I perceive someone as doing something to me, or whenever I have a problem that I perceive as being caused from outside myself, then I run into the obstacle or the opportunity, depending on how you want to look at it. If I want to choose the opportunity course, then I can pause for a moment, as it says in the 12-step literature, pause when agitated, which, side note, I've always found impossible. due to early childhood trauma and adverse childhood experiences and the subsequent and ensuing long-term chronic effects all the way into adulthood. So to have the guts to try to sit still with ourselves in the moment when we have such experience is quite challenging. And to pause in the middle of this and to consider someone else, hey, hold on a second. They're just the maker of their own misery over there, okay? I don't even want anything to do with the toxic energy. I got to move away. To me, that's kind of a good feet on the ground approach to this, right? It's just kind of like I can't really stop and become pure and holy, right? In the in the Walmart parking lot or something, you know. So my attitude has to be trained. I have to re-educate my mind, as my teacher often said, and as really all the teachings are trying to guide us and lead us to, is this idea of retraining the mind to look at the right thing, to have the correct view, and the view of reality as it is. And the reality as it is from the basis of the Buddhist teaching is that we all are the manufacturers of our own misery. Ultimately, it's us, period, end of story. Do we live that? Do we have a deep realization of that? So, what you get in watered down Dharma and generic sort of pseudo spirituality, marketing, hype, Instagram programs, all these kinds of things that you see. These things, I don't know. They're kind of devoid, really, of any concrete sense. But what we're asking here, what the Dharma, it doesn't ask, it just does. If you walk up to the Dharma is sitting there, the Buddha's sitting there, and you walk up and say, hey, I'm suffering, I want teachings. You're the one basically putting your head on the chopping block, so to speak, right? So if someone cuts your head off, the thing is, they didn't cut our head off. There's no them, there's no us, and if there were, in the relative reality, then I caused it with my own bad karma, with my own misdeeds, with my own selfishness and greed. And if we just take a look at this view, we're kind of like this sort of cosmic vacuum, just like, we're just consumers. You can be left-wing politics, Portland progressive, and still be just a big consumer of your own bullshit. Whether you're on the other side, you can be on the extreme right-wing extremist side, and you're like, you're just sucking up the nonsense from the internet, from some knucklehead who made it up, So we have a responsibility here to understand and see that we are just really just like this big addict, just like taking, just like trying to get, trying to get something. We're trying to get something. So have self-compassion. Understand that the reason why we're like this is because this is evolution. We don't survive by sitting on our butt. You wake up in the prairie, in the Sahara somewhere, sub-Sahara, and the light is, the sunlight opens your eyes and there's hunger in everyone's belly. You got to move. You got to go get the food. You got to survive. And we're built like this. But then the evolution is since we're built like this, we could create for ourselves a scenario in which we can sit and practice Dharma, the study and science of the mind, techniques to liberate the mind from suffering. So we have this technique, the Bodhisattva Path. And it's basically, instead of holding concretely to my own sense of self as inherently existent from its own side, solid, concrete, real, justified point of view, stake in the ground, here's my flag, don't cross that line. Okay, there's that common awareness, like if you're unevolved, in the overall evolution of the species, say psychically, psycho spiritually, right? Um, you're coming to a different level of pausing. You're not out there rushing for the food anymore. You're not hurrying to survive to get away. You've built yourself a palace. You have the good fortune to create an opportunity where you're not running and you're not hiding and you're not striving and suffering. You're just able to sit and perceive and observe your mind. You're not in that survival mode. You have a moment to pause and reflect, to pause when agitated. If we are traumatized, we have a bell going off in our internal alarm system. And when that bell goes off, the brain on a neurochemical level is responding as if there's a threat. And on some level, we might not even notice it because we come to live with it over our lifetimes. We come to not notice that this alarm is going off, and that alarm is our survival instinct. And the trauma happens when we're in a place where we can't escape, where there's nowhere to run, and the safe people aren't safe, and there's nowhere to hide. That's where this stuff gets pretty deep into our internal shock system, our internal stress system. Our ability to cope is completely short-circuited, and over time it affects many levels of our varying developmental processes. The levels of understanding social cues, processing information, understanding and regulating emotion, uh, concentration, learning, language. All these things are affected, and not to mention the physical health problems. So when we come to a position that we're faced with a situation that feels like somebody's about to cut our head off. Well, from an ACE's point of view, they that could be happening when it's not happening. It's probably not happening. In fact, it's probably not happening, but we feel like it's happening. So if we want to understand and get down at the root of what's going on here, yes, we understand exactly what's going on. This is a stress response based on complex trauma. It's an anxiety response. It's not because I have bad character. It's not because I'm a bad person. It's not because I'm not trying. It's not for lack of effort. It is outside of my control. In a sense, I'm powerless of it being there, but I'm not powerless to heal it, to help it heal. Right? So after many years of mind training and mindfulness awareness, I can hear my thoughts and see them sometimes before my mouth opens, but not always and not often, not as often as it needs to be. But the training is to recognize in the moment, this guy's about to cut my head off, and instead of cutting his head off, pause and let him pass. Smile and say thank you. Understand this is an opportunity. And just avoid. The beautiful thing, as is to look at it and go, wow, did I dodge a bullet? Wow, did I dodge a bullet? Sometimes you have to look and say, man, if I weren't a practitioner then, if I weren't in recovery then, that could have been something that led me down, that would have taken a month or a year or 5 years of my time, that action, or hours of my time, or even just a few minutes. There's a finite number of minutes in my life. Why squander any of them? So this whole story, the Dharma, the Bodhisattva Path, trauma in the brain, recovery, understanding who we are and where we are on the path, is the point and focus of everything that, at least that I talk about here on the 12-Step Buddhist podcast. and that I've written about and been writing about since 2008 or so. And in compassionate recovery, all of this is explained from the beginning to the end with a guiding voice going all the way through it to kind of nurture you and help you through the material. It isn't a book to be read through and put aside. It's a book to you open it and you allow yourself to feel and be where you need to be and open to any page, start where you want. If you want to read from the beginning to the end, it may take you a long time. But wherever you are, you can drop in. You can learn about something, and there's a practice there for you to integrate that within yourself, right? So that it becomes meaningful and not just words that you read in another book on recovery. Compassionate recovery is not another book on recovery. It's a healing path for you. It's a path for you to explore the roots of suffering. And when we understand and integrate this with Dharma, and we're not doing that in that book, we're not talking Dharma, as I've said. But if you understand Dharma and you listen to this podcast, if you read and study and take teachings and so forth, then you're going to get a lot more out of this. But even if you don't, you're going to have the opportunity to practice on a deeper level. But let's not, soft pedal this, okay? I want to be real with you, as always. Most of us don't want to do the healing. Most of us really can't even imagine ourselves doing this kind of gut-wrenching, staying through the suffering, sitting with it no matter what, not running, not hiding, not avoiding, taking 100% responsibility. I have to sit here 100 times a day and say, it's all me, it's all on me, it's all because of me. Be careful on that one emotionally, but just to take responsibility. Okay, look, I'm trying to train my mind, my very wild elephant ego. The train. What was that movie with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock? Was it the bus that was rolling through San Francisco without brakes or something? That's how my ego's. But it has the force of, it has the karma, it has the push, right? Think of karmic density as everything in this moment that exists is the accumulation of infinite causes coming to this moment of apparent solidity, but it's not solid. It's not solid. It's just light. It's just light that's kind of all concentrated in one place. Just like if you spread a flashlight into the sky, it's diffuse. If you put it in front of the wall, it's concentrated. It looks more real. But obviously the light's not real. It's not permanent. It's there yet not there, as we read in the beginning. So let's just pause with this for a moment and just try to experience in your body what arises as we work with this kind of information, as we work with this kind of knowledge about ourselves. There's a vibration within me coming from somewhere. I can't put my finger on it. I couldn't probably even find it on the therapist's couch. I have tried since 1985 in almost regular therapy for the past however many years that is. Could not put my finger on the source of that suffering, but through mindfulness and understanding of your trauma and understanding of how addiction works in your brain, how emotional cycles and funnels and spirals work within yourself. And then you're really clear to be able to apply the method, say the method of the Bodhisattva practice. If someone cuts off my head, I say, oh my God, they're creating bad karma. I'm Tonglen, I'm taking it in. I mean, I'm like worrying about myself here. Even in this mental practice, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to just take on the bad negative weight of the density of karma of this being who's been alive forever and has accumulated massive, unbelievable quantities of. If you think about the density of karma, think about the density of planets, think about the density of steel, think about how hard and apparently permanent and real a rock is, but over time it's sand and dust and gone again. Like us, like everything. Everything is like this. Apparent, impermanent, and thus dreamlike. Not even really real because we're kind of looking in the dream going, hey, I'm totally sucked in. Wow, that looks real. It is, and it's a fantasy. It's the Dharma is to see this. And the practice of seeing this is that, well, if this is true, someone's cutting my head off, I can just take their suffering and offer my happiness. That's because I see this. But that's the training that I got to get to where this becomes spontaneous and automatic. Working on the sound quality, new microphone on the way. We've got those plans to just try to upgrade and up level as I pick this back up after beginning it in 2008. And now we're doing this weekly, and there's a lot of content. So I hope that you'll consider the path of compassionate recovery. You can go to Amazon. You can get Kindle, hardcover, trade paperback in 2 different sizes. You can get the audiobook. Information will be at compassionaterecovery.us because it's not about me, it's about us. All right, that does it for today's 12-Step Buddhist podcast. As always, thank you for listening and thank you for being on the path. Peace out and namaste.